The following is a program of the Santa Barbara County Education Office. To learn more, visit sbceo.org.
Hi, I'm Susan Salcido, Santa Barbara County Superintendent of Schools, and I am so delighted to introduce our guest today, Jeremy Deming, who's the Executive Director and CEO of the Boys and Girls Clubs here in the Santa Maria Valley. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate your time. I really appreciate all that you do in the Santa Maria Valley and beyond, which we'll talk about.
Well, same to you.
Thank you. And I can't wait to talk all about the reach and the depth of the program. But really, let's start with you and talk about where you grew up and your childhood and a little bit about your background.
I grew up in a small town in West Tennessee, about an hour northeast of Memphis. Had a pretty rough childhood growing up, mentally ill mother, twice broken home, situations that we see in Boys and Girls Clubs every day, which was probably the inspiration behind my career. That and the fact that my son, who is now almost 19 years old, he inspired my career heavily after he was born. So that's what all led me to this place almost 20 years later.
Wow. So small town growing up. Did you have siblings?
Yeah, I do. I have 3 half-siblings from 3 different marriages. So it's kind of a mixed family dynamic. My brother here in California is 17 years my junior.
Wow.
And he was actually the motivation behind me accepting this role here on the West Coast.
Is that right? And he's into technology.
He is,
that right?
yeah.
Okay.
He's up in Silicon Valley working for Google, and he's doing a great job. My relationship with him has been more father-son because of our age difference. I just feel really close to him. And when he announced that he was moving right out of college to the West Coast with no family, no connections, I wasn't cool with that. So my son and I decided to follow him here.
Yes. A bit of a safety net, but also a team.
Yeah, and to keep the connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he is only, sounds like 2 years older than your son. He's 17?
He's a few years older.
Okay.
He's in his mid to late 20s
okay,
now. So,
okay,
yeah, he's
got
a little bit older.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So Tennessee, you grew up there.
Yep.
And so where did you go to college? It wasn't in Tennessee.
I got my associate's degree from Dyersburg State in business-related technology, and that is in Tennessee.
Okay.
But I went to Rochester University, which is in the northern suburbs of Detroit, a small private school, and received my bachelor's in business administration from them. And then several leadership opportunities that have occurred throughout the course of my career that have been really exciting as well.
It sounds like very exciting, and one at Harvard, I understand.
Yeah.
What is it like to be on the Harvard campus?
You know, it was surreal. You hear about elite universities growing up throughout the course of your life and then into adulthood. And some of my colleagues have had those opportunities in the past, but I never really thought that I would have the opportunity to be a Harvard student. Opportunity came up through Boys and Girls Clubs of America, in which I received a substantial scholarship to attend a leadership summit there back in 2016, 2017. And it was actually on campus, on Harvard's campus. I stayed in the dorm and the whole 9 yards. Pretty intense experience, but also one that I derived a lot of value from.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I have to ask what the dorms are like.
Not what you would think.
No?
And for the adult students that are attending Harvard Business School, they're really more apartment-like settings.
I see.
Very, very nice. You have common areas with a kitchen and a living room, and then you have the dorm rooms down the hallway. So
you're right. It wasn't what I was thinking.
Not at all.
It sounds really wonderful.
Yeah,
and the program sounds wonderful too.
Yeah, it was incredible. 12-hour work days, morning to night. but completely worth it, and probably one of the best leadership opportunities I've been given.
That's fantastic, and probably some relationships formed that
Absolutely.
you have today.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So after those programs, college, several of the business programs, you worked with, or during that, you worked with the Boys and Girls Clubs in different states and different areas. Can you say a bit about each?
Sure. We're going back many years.
Okay,
I
or some.
I started in Lansing, Michigan, back in the year 2000 again, right after my son was born. And in that role, I was Vice President of Finance and Administration. I held that role for about 5 years. What was really unique about that role is that right out of college, in my mid-20s, and being a new father, I wound up within the first few months of employment of being the senior staff member running the entire organization. I credit a lot of my success, my later success, to that circumstance because of the fact that when you're thrown into the fire that way and you're forced to learn and to make it work, you really hone your leadership skills very early on. From
Real
there,
world problem solving.
Yeah.
Real world problem solving.
Not by choice.
Right. Forced.
From there, after a 5-year reign in that role, I took the CEO position at Boys and Girls Clubs of El Camino Real in Louisiana. Post-Katrina, really difficult job. Took over a very small one-club organization, built that up to 4 clubs in multiple parishes and about a $660,000 budget. I think we were at $250,000 when I got there.
Wow.
So a lot of growth, a lot of opportunity.
And explain parish, because not everyone...
Parishes are counties in the state of Louisiana. It's the only state that doesn't call them counties. So from there, I went to Boys and Girls Clubs of the Mississippi Delta. That was the most mission-focused role that I've had to date. You're talking about the most impoverished region and the most impoverished state in the country. Almost like a third world country smack dab in the middle of the United States.
Right.
So really powerful, incredible work, but exhausting. Certainly not sustainable long term. So I was there about 4.5 years.
What were the programs like there?
Same, and that's one of the things that I really appreciate about being a Boys and Girls Club staff member is that no matter if a kid walks into a club in the state of Mississippi, they're going to see the same programming here in California or Michigan or Louisiana, wherever I've been. All of that programming is uniform across the brand. So I really appreciate that. There's no reinventing the wheel every time that you make a move into a new position. So.
And was that position there the last one before coming to California?
Yes.
Okay, so before we talk about the California move, let's go back to what you just said about the commonalities around Boys and Girls Clubs, because I think one of the assumptions or notions that people have is that Boys and Girls Clubs is a national program, therefore it's run nationally, they're very like one another, and therefore it's funded, et cetera, nationally. But the national part really is maybe the common themes that you just discussed. What's unique about the program?
Correct, and I really appreciate that you brought that up, because you're right, that is a big misconception. Boys and Girls Clubs of America is the overall parental arm of the organization. They provide training, they provide curriculum, they bring in experts for research and evidence-based programming that we offer, but that's pretty much it. They don't fund our organizations. Every Boys and Girls Club organization is an individual operating entity. So we have to go out in the community and raise the funds necessary to serve the kids in that local environment. So it's really important that you brought that up, and I appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely. And it really goes then to the work that you do as CEO and Executive Director here in the Santa Maria Valley, which is a big organization.
It is.
And you're leading the organization, but you're also funding in terms of fundraising for the organization.
Correct.
And I understand right now that you're also taking on the role of an interim Executive Director for San Luis Obispo.
Yes.
So let's talk about, just in terms of the clubs or the reach, say a little bit about the Santa Maria Valley and San Luis Obispo.
Sure,
Okay.
Santa Maria Valley, we operate 9 club sites between the cities of Santa Maria and Guadalupe. We have 2 school-based sites in the community of Guadalupe, and we have 7 sites that are mixed. We have school-based sites, public housing sites, and then a standalone traditional site here in Santa Maria. just in this community, in the Santa Maria Valley, we serve 2,000 registered club members annually. Most of those coming from school-based sites, and we'll talk a little bit about those collaborations later. But I think one of the things that I'm most proud of is that when I got here in 2014, we were serving about 1,200 to 1,400 kids. So we've increased the number of children served substantially just in the last 4 years. Our budget was 1.2, 1.3 million at that time, and today we're 2.11 million.
Wow.
So almost $1 million of growth over the course of that 4-year period as well.
Wow, that is fast growth.
It is.
It's very fast.
But the opportunity was there.
Yeah.
And when you have strong leadership, you're able to step in and see what all of that low-hanging fruit looks like, and be able to take action pretty quickly.
By all those experiences that you brought, Michigan, Mississippi, everywhere, really seems like it really is of value to the Santa Maria Valley in terms of those Absolutely. Look at what you just said in terms of almost double that growth in such a short amount of time. Say a little bit about San Luis Obispo.
Yeah, sure. So I am the acting CEO for Boys and Girls Clubs of North SLO County, which is in the communities of Paso Robles and Atascadero. We operate one club site in each of those communities, both on school campuses. And schools, and this really relates to your profession, but schools are our #1 partner in all of the communities that we operate club sites in. And if you really think about that from a strategic perspective, the kids walk out of the classroom and into the club on the same campus. So you have a captive audience of children that need your services without them leaving the security of that school campus.
Right.
That's how we operate our clubs, all of them in North SLO County. And we're looking for expansion opportunities up there as well. Been working in that capacity since April of last year, so coming up on a year anniversary. 2
full-time jobs at once.
Correct.
Or more.
Yeah.
2+ jobs, full-time jobs at once. Thank you for doing it, actually, and really such a support and impact for students. And you said a moment ago about supports, really wrapping your arms around these students from school to right into that Boys and Girls Club environment, and it's a safe place to go.
Right.
And it really sings to me anyway about your experience growing up and saying you didn't really have that.
Right, I didn't.
But you wanted it for your son and you want it for children. So it really is like a second home to many of these students, both here in Santa Maria Valley and in San Luis Obispo.
Yeah, 85% of the kids that we serve in both organizations come from impoverished backgrounds, single-family homes, you name it, we see it. And those are the kids that are most mission-focused and the ones that we specifically target for our programs and services day after day.
Yeah. The name Bill Liban.
Yeah.
Who is he and what does he mean to the girls and boys clubs here in the Santa Maria Valley?
Bill is a legend. He is my predecessor. He was in his role for roughly 4 decades prior to my arrival. Left some really big shoes to fill. He is a beloved and cherished member of our community. In fact, in 2014, the year that I was hired, we had just finished up a huge capital project restoring the gymnasium at the Railroad Club site in Santa Maria. And to surprise him and to honor him, we named our basketball court the Bill Liban Court, and unveiled that to him when we had the ribbon cutting.
Wow.
Bill is still involved with Boys and Girls Clubs. I don't think he'll ever not be involved. When you're involved with Boys and Girls Clubs, your blood bleeds blue and you just can't get it out of your system. Bill is one of those guys, tried and true. In fact, his wife, Anna, still works for us as our director of operations. So we see Bill all the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know Bill. If I met him today, I think he would say, boy, you filled shoes and more. I mean, you've taken it on. It sounds like he's a legend, but it sounds like you're such a leader as well. And
well, it's because of his leadership and the support of our board of directors and community stakeholders like yourself that have really made that success possible. So he just primed the pump, and then I came in after and fulfilled those wishes.
I love that. Well, one of the awards, you talked about awards, recognition of Bill, an award of recognition of you, a chairman's award from the Santa Maria, is it the Chamber of Commerce?
Yes, that is
correct.
correct.
So let's talk about the award. What does it mean to receive the award, and what was your reaction in receiving the award?
I was completely unaware that this was happening. I attended their annual gala event, which was held at PCPA last year. And I remember specifically sinking into my chair in embarrassment when I finally figured out who they were talking about, which was me. But the meaning behind it is where I want to focus.
Okay.
Kamryn Stevens, who was the board chair for Boys and Girls Clubs of Santa Maria Valley when I was hired and led the search committee for bringing in the new CEO, was the outgoing board chair for the chamber that year. And so flash forward 4 years after my hire date, he is bringing me on stage in front of all of his colleagues in the chamber and the community to honor me in that way. And I was so humbled by that experience and proudly display that award in my office every day.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I have to ask you, were you expected to speak that night?
No,
were you expected to give
and
some
I'm very
remarks?
glad because I was flabbergasted. I don't think I would have been able to, but I was overcome with emotion and gratitude.
What a moment, and what a statement around the organization and your leadership, truly. I mean, really fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Earlier today on the show, you talked about school-based programs. You talked about different sort of ways in which the program reaches the community. Can you say again about some of what those are, and then say what the school-based one looks like?
Yeah, okay. So we have, let's start with Guadalupe Union School District, which is one of our key partners in the community. We have 2 school-based sites that operate in the community of Guadalupe, which are crucial to the success of those kids. And Dr. Handal, who is the superintendent of schools there, will tell you that we have a very strong relationship with him, and he's a diehard Boys and Girls Club guy. So we have a great partner in Dr. Handal and his staff. The school-based sites that we operate run the same exact programs as any other club site that we operate. So if you walk into the Railroad Club facility here in Santa Maria, and then you walk across the street to Robert Bruce School, which is part of the Santa Maria Bonita School District, you'll see the same program format, which just goes back to why it's just so incredibly successful when you're running a Boys and Girls Club organization, that you have that strong parental arm and the curriculum development from BGCA. Because you're going to see that in every single club site. So our school-based sites, although they're on campuses, they are functioning as Boys and Girls Clubs and primarily funded through ACES grants through the California Department of Education.
Got it. Okay. So those are the school-based grants, school-based programs, and then what are the other types of programs?
So my office is located at Evans Park, which is a public housing complex. Again, if I'm looking at the most mission-focused children that we serve, that's probably the club site that's closest to my heart. These are kids that faced tremendous adversity throughout the course of their young lives, and we are, most of the time, the only source of stability and security that they have. And I think of this example, every time I think of Evans Park, I think of our Youth of the Year in 2018. Crystal was her name. Crystal was an extraordinary young woman, still is, and never ceases to amaze me, but suffered tremendous abuse growing up as a little girl in her family. And then how all of that came out was that she confided in one of our staff members, who then protected her and shielded her from the adversity that she would face in the future from her own family members. Wow. And she spoke about that in her Youth of the Year speech in front of a crowd of 200 strangers and delivered this message that was so incredibly powerful and compelling. And to be able to do that at 15 years old, wow. and to speak about those hardships and how they impacted her emotionally, physically, mentally, it's one of the best examples that I can give you of the power and impact of our programming.
Wow, I feel like I want to pause and just take a deep breath, because talk about an intense story around somebody who's in our backyard, in our community, the 2018 Student of the Year, with such a story to tell at such a young age.
The sad news, Susan, is that she's one of thousands.
Yeah.
These are stories that I hear every single day, and the challenges that these kids face are seemingly insurmountable. When we step in as a partner in their life, a partner in helping them to build a great future, that's the point where the trajectory changes,
Right.
and we're able to provide them with positive experiences. We're building up their self-confidence and their self-esteem. Their GPAs usually boost by 11% on average year after year. These are things that Boys and Girls Clubs produces in the communities that we serve in, but are usually the best kept secret in those communities.
Wow.
Yeah.
The story that you shared about this individual sounds like it's an example of the impact Boys and Girls Clubs have on students, but it's also that impact that the students have on leaders like you and those in the club to say, this is why we do what we do.
Absolutely.
It really feeds who you are.
You know, I think that if you spend any significant amount of time in a Boys and Girls Club setting, it's really difficult for you to walk away from that. I myself have had professional opportunities outside of Boys and Girls Clubs over the years, but I have chosen specifically to stay with the Boys and Girls Club movement because of the impact that I've witnessed, because of the stories that I can tell. And the kids like Crystal and so many others like her. I mean, over 20 years, I've seen tens of thousands of kids walk through our doors, and to see those kids become productive, responsible, and caring citizens as a result of what we do, and given their backgrounds, it's fascinating.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Talk about the drive and motivation, that why behind why you do what you do.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate. The kids give me as much as I give to them.
Well, speaking of give, we talked about earlier fundraising, and that's a big part of your job.
It's a huge part.
It's a huge part. It's constantly evolving, changing, and the Boys and Girls Clubs of Santa Maria Valley, you have huge fundraisers.
We do.
I think you have one that's coming up soon.
Yeah, we do.
Yes.
It's our 39th annual auction and gala. It'll be held at the Radisson Hotel here in Santa Maria. Last year was a record-setting precedent year for that event. We raised over $212,000 gross.
Wow.
Which is the most we've ever raised. So we've set the bar pretty high. I'm really anxious to see what we do this year. But this is an event that is truly remarkable. And if you haven't been, I would encourage you to come. You're welcome to come as my guest.
Thank you.
But we have a wonderful time celebrating the work that we do at Boys and Girls Clubs. The Youth of the Year will speak at that event.
Fantastic.
In fact, our Youth of the Year this year, the 2019 Youth of the Year for Santa Maria Valley, just yesterday was announced the 2019 Youth of the Year for the region.
Are you allowed to share a little bit about his story?
I am.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Eric Pinedo Tovar is his name. He's a 17-year-old senior in high school here in Santa Maria. Eric has a unique story to tell where he says, you know, my background isn't like some of my counterparts in the clubs. I didn't have this desperate situation that I was coming from in reference to my background or, you know, my parents not being together or living in poverty. I actually had a pretty normal childhood setting. But saying that, and he said this in his speech yesterday, what the club offered me as a kid with my unique background and circumstances was far and above anything that I could have imagined. And the only reason that I am able to stand before you today and tell my story. Eric was a really shy and timid kid. He would never, I would say 2 or 3 years ago, he would never have been prepared to do what he did yesterday. But because of the leadership skills that he's been provided at Boys and Girls Club, he was able to stand up and give this eloquent speech in front of hundreds of people from all over the 4-county region, and he took home the title of Youth of the Year.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an ambassador for himself and an ambassador for the Boys and Girls Clubs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and really the Santa Maria Valley, but boy, regional.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
So now he goes to state.
Okay.
So next month he'll be at the State Youth of the Year competition, and we're wishing him well in that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We all wish him well, for sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned a moment ago about him, leadership skills in terms of speaking and being able to speak in front of all the different groups that he's had to speak in front of. How about you and your leadership skills? Clearly, you have mad leadership skills. You've been honing them for quite some time. But in your work, where you're giving, and also needing to figure out different ways to evolve, that's a lot of output. Mm-hmm. How do you find input in terms of leadership and honing your leadership skills?
I mentioned earlier that I've had the ability to experience tremendous leadership development opportunities throughout the course of my career.
Right.
The first was sponsored by University of Michigan's Ross School of Business, where I went through an advanced leadership program. And this was many years ago, 11, 12 years ago now. The second was the Global Institute for Leadership Development, which was down in Palm Springs. That was a fantastic, eye-opening experience where here I am, this little nonprofit CEO sitting next to a Fortune 500 CEO. Yeah. What was fascinating about that leadership development opportunity is what we had in common. I'm running a $1 million organization, and she's running a $500 million organization, and the commonalities between us were truly fascinating, what we learned from each other in those experiences. And then most recently, as you mentioned earlier, Harvard Business School, their Leadership Summit program, that was just incredibly impactful for me as a leader.
That's great. So professional development, training, but also real tying together, really cross-sector.
And remembering to take time for yourself.
Yes.
Which is something that we don't do a very good job of as leaders. But yeah, I think, I specifically set aside 2 days a month at a minimum in which I attempt to accomplish absolutely nothing.
No goals?
None. None whatsoever. Yeah. From the morning that I wake up, whether that's Saturday, Sunday, I specifically set those couple of days a month aside just to completely crash and chill and do nothing. And that has been beneficial to me in reference to my overall well-being and focus.
I appreciate that. It's a good tip for some people who are watching thinking, because it goes so quickly, the days. Does. Yeah, the days, the months, the
years.
The years.
The years.
They go like this.
Yeah.
We have just a few minutes left, or just a few moments left here, and we were just talking about leadership. So I just want you to speak a little bit about the leadership training you have for students and the technology and your brother. So let's talk all
about it.
Okay.
Yeah. So Leaders in Training is one of our programs that falls within our Keystone Club approach for teen programming. It's a character and leadership development program specifically designed for teens ages 13 to 18. And what we hope to do, and what my leadership philosophy is we are responsible for building future leaders.
Right.
So whether that's an adult staff member that I'm working with and coaching and mentoring, or whether that's the kids that are in our clubs today that will be the future leaders of our organization and in the community tomorrow. I've always told my staff members repeatedly throughout the years that the kids that are in our clubs today will be in our respective positions tomorrow. So what you do today matters, and to always keep that in the back of your mind. Building future leaders is a core competency of any leader in any role, whether you're in the for-profit sector, you're in the education sector, or you're in the nonprofit sector.
Jeremy, I feel like I could sit and talk with you the whole day through about your life, your experience, your background, but also the way of thinking and influencing and impacting. It's not just those with whom you serve, but it's really the future, people you don't yet even know.
Absolutely.
And that impact that you provide is really something special.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Jeremy, thank you so much for spending the time with us today. I can't believe that
pleasure.
Time has gone by so fast, speaking of that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm Susan Salcido, Santa Barbara County Superintendent of Schools. Thank you so much for joining us today for this edition of Local Leaders.